I want to talk about the Waukesha massacre, but in the context of a larger issue, which is to say the issue of how the left has created, completely unnecessarily, a crime wave in America with terrible consequences. And now there is some effort, even in democratic cities, to backtrack from that crime wave. In a sense, the defund the police movement is giving way to a refund the police out of just sheer necessity and out of the desperation of the citizens. There's pressure coming from within these cities, Oakland and St. Louis and Baltimore and Portland and Seattle and even Minneapolis, which is where all of this kind of got started. Now, let me start by talking about Waukesha because the media, and by the media here, I'm referring specifically to CNN, specifically to the Washington Post. And here's an article from Mediaite that kind of captures the narrative. Waukesha parade suspect was reportedly fleeing another crime scene. Authorities doubt terrorism. So you have to ask, why are they trying to kind of cover up for this Waukesha suspect? This guy, terrible, he kills 5 people, injures more than 40 grandmothers. I mean, just mowing them down in a parade, in a Christmas parade. But the reason for the cover up is the guy's black. That's it. There's no other reason. He's black and he's a convict, and therefore he falls into a protected category. And so the media rushes to say, oh, no, this is not, had it been a white guy, oh my gosh, this has been unleashed by Kyle Rittenhouse's exoneration. White supremacy rides high. But because the guy is black, suddenly it's got to be, no, he was running away from something else. He didn't mean to be plowing into the parade. Now, all of this is undercut by the fact that the Waukesha police say that Darrell Brooks, the suspect, quote, intentionally drove his maroon SUV through the barricades into a crowd of people. It turns out he was not fleeing from anything. It turns out that this whole notion that he kind of accidentally found, it was ridiculous from the beginning, right? Who's running away from the cops and decides, you know what? This is the fastest way for me to get away. Let me make my way through a parade. I think I'm going to really get away this way. No, it's much easier to make a getaway in a different direction. It almost relies on the colossal stupidity of people to believe such nonsense. But the left is sort of shameless in putting out these lies until they are just toppled by reality itself. Now, the reason this guy was even out, Darrell Brooks, is it was a Soros DA, a guy named John Chisholm, who let him out. Let him out on $1,000 bail. This is a career criminal with a long rap sheet. And think about it. You got the January 6th defendants who did nothing, walked into the Capitol, took selfies, and they've been sitting in jail for months. So this shows you the complete breakdown of an even-handed standard of justice in America. Now, the problem on the left isn't just defunding the police. It's also the fact that you've got these DAs who are, in a sense, in league with the criminals. And until you get rid of them, people like Debbie and I talked about Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, and there are now about a dozen of these. Soros realized that I can put money in these DA races, which you can win for a relatively small amount of money. And so he essentially got thug apologists into the DA's office. Think about it. Talk about putting the fox into the chicken coop. Now, on the issue of defunding the police, mostly you saw cutbacks in police budgets across so many democratic cities in the wake of George Floyd. And the underlying ideology, again, was let's give the money to social programs because let's go to the root cause of crime. Let's not just give the money to cops. That is putting it in the wrong place. And so you saw cutbacks in a whole bunch of places, New York City, Portland, and so on. But now, as I say, as crime rates have skyrocketed, you're finding that they're not going back to refunding the police to where they were before, but they are putting more money into police departments. In New York City, for example, the de Blasio has basically said he's going to create a new police precinct. He's going to put in $92 million. This was before, of course, de Blasio stepped down, but his replacement, Adams, is a pro-police guy, and in fact has angered BLM. In Oakland, California, the city lawmakers did a budget cut, and they have now put $3.3 million back. Los Angeles' mayor wants to increase the budget, which was cut, by the way, for 150 million. He wants to put 50 million back into the police. I see the most recently Portland City Council is unanimously passed a fall budget that takes the police budget and kicks in an additional 5 million. So the trend is actually pretty clear. We see it in Austin, Texas. We see it in Baltimore, Maryland. The crime rates have reached intolerable levels. So even the Democrats, kind of against their will, have got to say no to the socialist defund the police crowd. Here's John Jones, a community organizer in East Oakland, stating kind of the obvious. In fact, I feel kind of silly reading this, but he goes, quote, "When bullets are flying through your home, when your house is being broken into, you want someone to show up and respond. You think? If the police are pulled back, the criminals will run amok. And this should have been known beforehand. It was known beforehand. But essentially, you could almost say that in the wake of George Floyd, reason flew out the window. People were willing to entertain idiotic ideas that they knew deep down were idiotic. We're now seeing the human toll, the tragic toll taken by all this. And so there is a little bit of a pullback. But you still have Democrats running insane. You still have Democrats gone wild. So we shouldn't think of the Democrats are coming to their senses. They're a long way from their senses. And the best political solution is not to try to figure out how to change the mind of a Democrat, but rather how to get a Democrat out of power so he can't do any more harm.